prime time on the top game, it's a fine line. Man in the match, that's Dave I. He's the main guy, keep a close eye. Make sure you don't make no wrong play, cause I'm with Jose and Andre. When Cyrus comes to walk in, you better know that you are watching Premier League. Dave I, tell what time we on. Prime time. Let me hear you say it. Premier League. Dave I, tell what time we on. Prime time.
Hello and welcome to Premier League Primetime Season 5, Episode 3. And yes, it's been a while, as I've said probably many of times. This was supposed to happen a lot sooner, but unfortunately, classes and midterms have been an absolute pain, unfortunately. But we're back. We're finally back after a long while. Back with these three. Jose, Sirius, Andre, how are we all doing? It has been a very long while. And of course, with that, let's get straight into the show. Let's take a look at Arsenal and their last 6 games. And especially in the latter part of those games, it's not looking great. And also not forgetting about the losing in the Champions League as well to Inter. What do you guys think is going wrong at Arsenal? Who's to blame? And could this be something where we should look back at the transfer window in the summer? And maybe it all started from there? Seriously, I'm going to mainly throw this one at you, but...
Yeah, first of all, sorry that the camera isn't on. Looks like my Mac is restarting now, so it should be 5-10 more minutes. But in terms of Arsenal, yeah, it's kind of weird because it's been a while since I've been on this show talking about Arsenal where I don't say good things about Arsenal. Like when we first started the show, it was like constantly criticizing Arsenal, and then the last 2 years has been pretty good. But yeah, not a good run of games. Is it time to panic? I don't think so yet. We're still in an okay position. Issue is injuries are coming. Don't know about Rice. Don't know about Saka. Ben White's out now for a couple weeks as well. Big blow. Calafiori is still out. Where it's gone wrong, it's, first of all, Odegaard was out for a while. I think that was a lot of our playmaking. Again, the one thing I said is, are we sure we should get rid of Emile Smith-Rowe? And I think that's come back to kind of bite us. He's been good. And for the first time, Odegaard's been out. And so I think that may have been a mistake. Second of all, we don't have an out-and-out goal scorer. While Havertz has been decent, we really needed to get a goal scorer this summer. And I think if we don't get one next summer, it's going to be a huge issue because the likes of Gabriel Jesus, he hasn't been the same since that injury before the World Cup. Another issue is I think that the left side of our pitch used to be way stronger than it is now. When we had the likes of Xhaka combining with our left winger, when we had Martinelli playing at his peak, I think Xhaka really helped Martinelli. And I think, Martinelli did score last game, but I think he's really not the level and the standard that he used to be. I think Trossard has also been, struggling, but that's also because we've been playing him out of position. So I think the criticism is a little too far. But overall, it's not been good enough. And if we really want to challenge for the Premier League, it's not over yet, but we got to start winning. And I think this break is good for us. And I think we can do what we did last year where we had this break, get everything sorted out, and then come back for a stronger rest of the season.
And about the transfer window, and I think that's, as you're mentioning about Smith-Rowe, as someone as to make the decision to get rid of him, but not bring anyone in to compete or to cover Odegaard, not bringing another right winger to compete and cover Saka, not bringing in a certified goal scorer, a lack of an upgrade on the left-hand side. Raheem Sterling at the end of the day was a last-minute loan deal. Edu just all of a sudden just jumping ship and leaving, departing for Nottingham Forest. So for me, that says that there are issues and problems going on behind the scene, because that's not normal that your technical director just all of a sudden decides to just leave. Um, don't necessarily know exactly what the reason is. It could be money. It could be a more enticing opportunity. I don't know. I don't know the exact words of Edu on the matter, but I want to throw this out to the rest of the panel. Seeing where Arsenal are now, do you think one of the main roots as to why is the lack of, I guess you could say, quality business done in the transfer window in the summer? Did Arsenal not make the most of it? Did they screw it up?
Yeah, I think definitely they did. I think that they definitely needed to get a goal scorer, like Steve said, but they also needed to replace Smith Rowe, because I think that they have Odegaard, of course, who's a great playmaker, but if he goes down, who else do they have who's a playmaker like him? They really have no one else. So I think that's a big problem, and I think that's why they're struggling to score goals a lot this season.
I mean, they do have Ethan Ranieri, but Arteta, for whatever reason, just doesn't like to play him. Doesn't I don't I For the last time as far as I can recall, and Sears can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he started in the Premier League this season. I don't think he has.
Sorry,
and
who are you talking about?
Nwaneri,
No, he has not.
and the amount of times we've seen Trossard being played in that number 10 role, and the amount of poor performances that we've seen, it's just it makes you think, why not try something different? And it makes you think, the whole Smith Rowe was brought into the team in very somewhat similar circumstances, also in a slump. Arteta, out of ideas, decided to try something completely left-hand and out of the blue, something different. Brought in the young G's, so like Smith Rowe, decided to play Martinelli, kept Saka, and then they went on that bit of a run. So is it time for Arteta to try something different? And specifically on Arteta, it definitely seems a bit that their title hopes are, in jeopardy. Looking at Liverpool right now, I think they're 10 points clear. At Man City, the reason why Man City aren't clear is because they're having a bad patch themselves. But, if Arteta doesn't deliver a major honor, do you think the uncomfortable conversations need to be had now? Face five seasons without a trophy. Do you think it'll be time to have those uncomfortable conversations? 800 million spent as well in backing the manager. Throw it out to
I
the
think
panel.
I did want to say two things. I think that conversation will be had if the underlying metrics behind their performances continue to be as low as they are. Because that's the thing; they're not performing at a title contender level, despite the best Arsenal from last year was grinding out their results, and they really have that. I mean, I'm still in love with watching that Arsenal defense at times. Just from a tactical point of view, it's really brilliant. But you sort of get the feeling that they're at that stage right now where they seem like they might become one of those teams that are just one or two puzzle pieces away from being champions. It's not a fun comparison to make because of the rivalry, but that's kind of how I now view that really good Pochettino Spurs side. That's what I see in this Arsenal side. I think they've got to get their next couple of transfers like truly right. Like they need to be careful with the injury prone players they've gotten, and then just they need more courage going forward. You can have that defensive solidity, but I think adding those one or two puzzle pieces. I mean, I've seen Gyökeres linked with a move in the January window. Just those really solid transfers just might give them a little bit more courage going forward, and I think that could improve underlying metrics on the attack, and then those conversations maybe will be better if you can see that the project is headed in the right direction. But if at the end of the season they underperform as they have up until now, yeah, I think that conversation is going to be had.
No, definitely. And, you talk about, Arsenal, beautiful football. And, over the years with Arsene Wenger, that was one of the main things he's known for, revolutionizing the Premier League in the Arsenal way. Playing beautiful football, attractive football. Arteta, a lot of people, he was thought to be the next Pep Guardiola, the next Jose. I don't know. He might be the next Pulis, because the football that I've seen from Arsenal this season. And look, I know, yes, if you're missing Saka, you're missing Odegaard, you're not going to be the most attacking team in the world. Of course, those are like probably your two best, arguably your two best players in the entire club. You can maybe make that argument. So, okay, I can understand it a little bit, but that shouldn't change the entire way you play, structurally as well. And some of the football that I've been seeing from Arsenal this season has just been absolutely shocking. From, as Sirius said, from the last 2 years, it's been almost all positive. It's going a bit downhill, and I definitely believe that conversations are to be had, because let's not forget, Arteta wanted Kai Havertz. He didn't want to sign a striker in the summer. He wanted to keep faith in Havertz. He wanted to keep Jesus. A lot of these were his decisions as well, and makes you raise the question: if a lot of these were his decisions as well, how much power did Edu really have in making some of those decisions that he might not have wanted to make? But now, moving into Aston Villa, taking a look at their last 6 games, 1 win in 6, not looking great for Unai Emery's side, and I think balancing it out with Europe has been different. And a question I wanted to throw out to all of you: looking at Newcastle last year, they had Champions League and the Premier League. They struggled to cope with both. Do you think Aston Villa are going to follow suit and suffer the same fate?
Not to the same extent. I think Aston Villa are going to be okay. I think they're just having a bit of a rough patch. I think they'll recover, but I think that they'll definitely finish lower this season than they did last season. Sorry, because of their Champions League. Yeah, I think it's gonna affect them, but not to as great an extent as it affected Newcastle.
I mean, they have been doing exceptionally well in the Champions League. I mean,
Yeah,
they
I
were
think they lead the
top
table.
of the.
Or they're joint top, maybe first or second.
I mean,
Last time I checked the table, they dropped fairly low. But yeah, they've only lost 1 game. I think they've won every single game that they've had, and they play the likes of Bayern Munich, which are definitely not.
Oh no, yeah, they lost 1 game. They dropped a little bit, but they're still in the top 8.
And they've done exceptionally well. Go on.
I mean, I was just gonna say, I do think Villa. I think they do have a tough task ahead of them if they're truly trying to balance all the competitions. But to me, and I'm not a Villa fan, so maybe I'm off base saying this, but it feels like everything from the manager up until the board, it almost seems like maybe prioritizing the Champions League and a good run in that might be better for the club and brand. You look at the competition in the Premier League this season, I think Villa would be better off with a decent top half finish and reaching like a Champions League quarterfinal, getting that money in. That might be better for their brand. They invest that money, go harder in the Premier League next season, and then maybe next season they can push even further in Europe. So I almost do feel like maybe it does make sense to prioritize Europe if they have to pick a competition. If they can get that money in, go far, expand the brand, and then they can still try in the domestic cups too. But between Europe and Premier League, I would almost argue, let's push for Europe.
I mean, just to expand on that really quick, Unai Emery is also a tournament coach, which we've seen before.
I was about to
He's
say
a
that.
specialist in winning tournaments. Yeah, sorry, I took Davis's words out of his mouth, but yeah.
No, that's a very, very good point. They're in this position. Yes, they have a great squad, but if they had almost any other manager, they wouldn't be in this position. Unai Emery's the reason why they're in this position. Let's be honest. And look, don't get me wrong. Monchi is a horrific director of football. I've rated this guy for a long time, but he's not there if Emery wasn't at Villa in the first place. So Unai Emery is the reason why they're in this position, and the vast majority of the credit should be going to him. But the last thing I wanted to talk about Villa, of course, they have Tyrone Mings is coming back. Boubacar Kamara is back from injury. But I think we have to, again, John Duran. Yes, he's fallen off a little bit, but I'm not going to let maybe a couple performances or games where he didn't actually score goals, affect his overall run and influence in these 6 games. He's either come up with a goal or he's actually been playing well. good performances. Is there really, a competition between Ollie Watkins and Duran to start, or is it just a matter of just a bit of a purple patch? What do you guys think?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like they can both start. No.
I mean, they can.
There is, of course, although I will say Morgan Rogers has been very good so far.
Yeah.
In the past few games, especially.
Yeah, Morgan Rogers is another one. Very, very good player. The one thing I will say is that this season, just in general, he has been a bit up and down. But for a player who's now just becoming like a mainstay, regular starter in a top Premier League side, it will be a bit of a transition, which is completely understandable. And I think with that squad depth, and especially you're talking about, money as well, Andre. And if they end up not, finishing in Europe, and finishing in a European place, not winning any domestic cups, they have players, like the Durans. If bigger clubs come in with huge bids, that's a player that they can look at. Just sign a brand new 5-year deal. That's a player they can make money on. How much do you reckon that Villa could get for Duran? Let's say, for instance, I don't know, Chelsea, Arsenal came in. They want to sign Duran.
When?
How much you just
in January?
Let's say in the summer. What will not happen in January. In the summer, let's say. How much do you reckon they could get for him?
I mean, it depends how many goals he finishes the season on. If he continues at his current rate, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they could get 80 or 90 million for him.
That's it. Seriously, what do you think?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How much you reckon if, let's say, Chelsea and or Arsenal come calling for John Duran in the summer, how much money do you reckon Villa could get for him?
I'd say 60 to 70.
Fair enough. Next, looking at Bournemouth, and they've only lost 2 games, and they're the games that I don't think, if the scores weren't there, and you had to guess 2 random games that they had lost, no one would have predicted that the games that they lost were Leicester and Brentford, by a goal as well. Which in the Brentford game they actually just capitulated at the end of the day. But I think the first thing we have to talk about Bournemouth, the main thing, Andoni Iraola, this manager's brilliant. I mean, he's absolutely superb. How much credit are we giving this guy?
Yeah, very large amount of credit. I mean, it's not only that they're winning games, but they're winning games well. Like, I think that they're actually their team is playing very well. They're a good side to watch. I enjoy watching them. And I think that to his credit, he's also got Evan Nilsson to start scoring, which is great for them. So yeah, massive credit to him.
No, 100%, especially post Richard Hughes, post Dominic Solanke, 2 big losses for them. They've done very, very, very smart, intelligent business in the summer. Evan Nilsson starting to find his feet, which is something that I'm sure the Cherries will be very happy about. But I think if there's one player that is an absolute must to talk about, I mean, one could say Malo Kirkej, the left back, but it has to be Antoine Semenyo. I mean, this guy is on smoke. Similar to the question that I kind of threw out earlier to you lot. If teams, came calling for him in the summer, how much money do you reckon that Bournemouth could get for him? Anyone of you?
This is a tougher one. Earlier, I did want to say with Duran, I did think in the region of 60. With Semenyo, maybe go a little less, 50 maybe.
That's right. I mean, he's so important to Bournemouth because, yes, you have the likes of Kluivert and Tavernier who will get you goals here and there, but he's the main guy because Evan Nilsson hasn't been doing it. Even when Solanke was there last season, Semenyo was still getting numbers.
Yeah.
And I told man about Semenyo in the season opener. I said it. this season for me will be something I will particularly look at as to whether he was scoring because of how good Solanke is as an overall footballer, or if it's actually, he's got that instinct and an ability to just stop by get GNA alone, which as of right now, so far, he's proving me right. And I think there's a very, very good footballer there, and he's definitely one to watch, along with the likes of Milo Kirkic as well. Moving into Brentford, taking a look at Brentford's last couple games. 2 wins, draws, 2 losses. I find it so interesting, right? How this side, for however many games, just had this streak where they'd score within the opening minute or 2 minutes, almost all the time by Mbeumo. Just I just found that so interesting. What do you guys think?
You heard me last time. Sucker Punch FC. I mean, not only that, but it's just if you look back at their goals these past weeks, they're beautiful goals. They're really brilliant. The interplay, it's just really quality goals. So I will say that is when they're going on these attacking moves, they just always seem to be one step ahead. And their goals have just been a joy to watch when they do happen.
And I also think, again, just as an overall footballing side, well structured, well coached, which again leads me to Thomas Frank. I feel like this guy's going to either stay in Brentford forever, or he's just going to be out the door in an instant. I don't know, because because he was linked with the Man United job for a bit. He's been linked with the West Ham job for a bit. I heard from a few sources that he's a contender for the West Ham job if Lopetegui goes, which I think that'd be a great appointment. I think, and Andre, you mentioned this a little while ago, just players that they've had for a long while, starting from the Championship. And there's nothing wrong with having players from the Championship, but if you're trying to improve and to upgrade, if it's not, doing what Ivan Toney's doing, even that's very difficult. Maybe that's a bit unfair for me to say, but at least the levels of, I don't know, what Christian Norgard, for example, is doing, then, a lot of these players need to be on the chopping block and need to be replaced. And they've lost the likes of Tony. They've lost the likes of, or they did lose the likes of Raya, replace them both. Taking a look at what Brentford has now, what area in the pitch do you all of you believe is the most problematic area on the pitch for them as of right now? For me, I think it's their defense, but I want to hear from you lot.
I would have said the midfield, just because if you look at a lot of their previous games, I think it's it indicates a lack of control. You have 5-3 Wolves, I think you had 4-3 to a different team. You have 4-3 Ipswich. I just think for me that's a bigger issue in the midfield because it just indicates a lack of being able to control the game. And again, the midfield, what we said earlier, it's very much the same midfield that they came up with however many seasons ago. It's really not they lost. I think they lost Sergi Canos maybe 1 or 2 seasons ago, but otherwise it hasn't really changed very much. So I think that for me it's I would pick out the midfield.
No, that's definitely fair. One thing I will say, that Vandenberg signed from Liverpool, he's not looking great. But Liverpool I don't know how Liverpool do it. They first seeded with Ryan Brewster. They sell players that rarely played for them for enormous profits. And I think it was Michael Edwards that was there who actually handled that Ryan Brewster deal. So I don't know how he got 30 million for him, which is absolutely incredible. Anyways, next, moving into Brighton, and this is a side that just, despite losing to Chelsea and Liverpool, this is a side that just continues to impress me. Fabian Herzler, let's just remind everyone, came from St. Pauli in the summer. I will hold my hands up and I will say, yes, I had seen him and seen his San Pauli side play from when I was in San Pauli last school year, so just from one game. But I'm not going to judge any manager from one game. But 31 years of age, he is coming to the side, and he is, I guess you could say, in a way, has revolutionized the way Brighton play, in the sense that you look at the defensive line of Brighton, and at times, and it's probably the reason why they lost against Chelsea, he is fearless in the sense that he plays this high line. At times it will expose him, but I feel like he also has elements of pragmatism to his game. But what's the ceiling for Hurtler and Brighton this season? And how much credit do you like give him? I'll throw this one out to all of you.
I mean, I give him a lot of credit. I think he's done a really good job. It's been basically the same Brighton I think that we've seen. Oh, not the same tactically, but the same performance-wise Brighton that we've seen for the past, I think, 3 seasons now. So I think he just continues to impress and continues to show why Brighton are a really, really impressive side.
And they brought in some very good players as well. Kadioglu, Weifer from PSV, one of the most one of the better young talents in Europe right now. After a season from PSV, I think it was PSV that they signed him for. Hopefully, I'm right on that. So the likes of João Pedro, Carlos Baleba as well. Again, a very good squad. Wait, Andre, were you going to say something?
No, just when you're talking about Hurtler, I was gonna give him his credit, and then also just the Brighton board for just obviously picking a candidate that perfectly complements their infrastructure. That's what Joe means when it's the same Brighton. It's because they have these very strong foundation, these strong footballing beliefs, and it's like, yeah, they're finding these guys that are complementing them perfectly. It's felt like since Potter, they've always taken it up another notch. They've tweaked something about it tactically, and it's worked to complement this project that they have, growing youth, attracting young talent, and making them ready to take on the challenge of the hardest league in the world.
And Brighton have been doing this forever, as Andre said. They find these managers and players from I'd say maybe apart from Kadioglu and Weifer, because those deals are fairly, in regards to Brighton, those were fairly expensive deals to do. Very effective, smart, inexpensive, cheap business to do. Along with finding these random gems from literally wherever. But probably the most notable player is a veteran, Danny Welbeck.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Welbeck. I wanted to talk about Welbeck. Yeah.
Like
yeah, he's doing.
Insane.
Their fan base loves him, and rightfully so. He's a perfect leader for that front line. Just that little bit of experience. I think it just works. It works. I'm happy for him. He's still in the game. He's still putting up performances.
And Danny Welbeck's always been a decent Premier League striker. He always has been.
Yeah.
All know.
How old is he right now?
Joe will know.
33.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's still something to applaud. I think starting for a prem side like that too.
He's displacing the likes of Evan Ferguson, which again, I know he's coming back from injuries and all that, but what's happened to Evan Ferguson? Man, I swear he's fallen off a cliff. But it's just what's going on with him. There are times where he's displacing flipping João Pedro, and all these men know how much I rate João Pedro, and how big of a fan I love. So that that says something.
Yeah.
Next.
Real quick, I was going to say, Weifer was from Feyenoord. He was on the Arne Slot team. Arne Slot project.
Okay, good.
Wait, so Davis was wrong for the record?
Davis was wrong for the record. Yes.
Yeah,
but he did know. He said correct. He looked nervous saying PSV, and he did say correct me if I'm wrong. But he's still really wrong.
I did save myself in the end. And I said, I think it is PSV, but again, I could very well be wrong. So yeah, hold on. Chelsea, Enzo Maresca, again, just another manager that's coming in, and one thing I said in the summer and back in September, I just loved how respectively transparent he was. And even now, like, he's getting, like, when I think Cucurella was out, I think Renato Vega was out, and the press asking him, oh, look at the way you're treating Chilwell. Do you miss him? Are you still gonna think about using him? No. And just kept it moving. Just the clearance and the coherence of this manager, and the way he's got this Chelsea team playing as of right now. Of course, they're not the finished article, but you've seen players who have been absolutely ridiculed and cooked over these last 2 seasons, and they've just been resurrected. Nico Jackson, Mark Cucurella, who had a very good Euros, is looking even better than he did in the Euros. And again, just it shows what a very good coach can do. But I think the one player that we all need to talk about, Moises Caicedo. Everyone, just what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I thought you were gonna say Nicholas Jackson. I was gonna get mad at you, but no, Caicedo has been fantastic. Yeah,
You have an anti-Nicholas
he's been really good.
Jackson agenda, bro.
I do. Yeah.
Why?
He's shit.
Oh, he's
I
way
don't
better.
get it.
Not. He's been good. He's been
He's
good.
way better
this
than
season.
who? Way better than who?
Than Xerxes.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I agree, but not better than Hoyland.
Close.
Anyways, oh dear. But sticking on the subject of Caicedo, I mean, this guy, he's been not only contributing defensively, he's also been helping in the attack. He's been helping in defense. He's just been everywhere on the pitch, and I'm already seeing some of the Chelsea fan base saying, "Oh, Caicedo, we can compare him to N'Golo Kante." Not yet. Not just yet. But he's definitely resembling N'Golo Kante-esque traits, characteristics. I mean,
if he can be everywhere on the pitch like Conte, then I think his ceiling could be higher than Conte, with given his ability to distribute the ball and stuff. I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, but what do you mean by traits in terms of Caicedo and Conte?
like looking at just the footballing characteristics of the N'Golo Kante, because there's a big sort of misconception that N'Golo Kante was this Claude Makelele sort of regen, but the whole thing with Jorginho, that partnership proved that he's not just an out and out 6. He's not someone who's just going to sit. He can do that, but he's so mobile and so energetic. He can move about across the pitch, go wherever, and still contribute very, very, very well across a multitude of different areas in the game, because he's just technically that good. And Caicedo is just he's a baller. He's technically top. The whole debates of the Caicedo versus Rice, I want to hear your thoughts on this, because of this ongoing debate. What do you lot think?
Caicedo's had a better season, I'd say, but we can't discount the whole last season. Rice was immense, and I don't think Rice has had necessarily a bad season, but he hasn't been the level he was last season. But I don't think you can say Caicedo's a better player just because he's been good for a couple of weeks versus a whole season the season before with Declan Rice.
Yeah,
No,
I
Also,
agree.
It's
would
just
agree.
been an ongoing debate that's been happening probably since before he went to Chelsea. Because Rice was at West Ham, so yeah, that debate's been happening since then, and it's still ongoing now. Cole Palmer, there's been a slight sort of drop off, and apart from the Tottenham game away last season, when you look at his away contributions against the Big Six, and even at home at times, it's definitely. Is it something to be a bit concerned about when you're
Yeah,
looking
well, he's lukewarm Palmer against the Big Six. That's for sure.
at Luke?
I mean, he's still young, and when you have that kind of quick development in the way that he did into the superstar, naturally teams are going to start to target you. They're going to know they're going to study how to nullify you. So as long as he, with his development, just finds those ways to get past that, and hopefully Chelsea can also strengthen in different areas that way teams can't just isolate Palmer. then yeah, I think it's natural that that's going to happen right now, and I don't think it's been happening long enough for it to be a concern. So yeah, I think just give it time, and he'll find his way to catch him off guard again.
No, I'm sure he'll definitely find his way back. That's not even a question. We all know how good he is technically. That's not even a question. But for as well as Cole Palmer and most of the attack has been doing, the back end of the pitch is something where I'm going to be worried about Chelsea. Robert Sanchez, that goalkeeper, he could be a potential reason why Chelsea don't get top 4 if Maresca persists with him. And even he said himself that he was going to persist with Sanchez. He's happy with him as his number 1. Do you think Chelsea will sign another goalkeeper next summer, despite already having signed 9 or so? I think 9 or so.
What other options do they have? Remind me.
They signed Jorgensen. He's been taking the Conference League games. And then they signed some Belgian wonder kid. I don't know his name off the top of my head. Who's it? Oh yeah, Kepa's still in their books. Is it? Oh yeah, he's at loan at Bournemouth. I almost forgot. Kepa. They have Philip Slanina who's on loan at, I think, Barnsley, I think. Could be wrong. But
Yeah, you're right. I watched him. When I was working at Lincoln, I watched Slanina play for Barnsley.
how did he look?
Pretty shocking, to be honest.
Robert Sanchez, yeah, I don't know. He's a bit suspect.
Is Petrovic on loan?
Oh, that's a very good point. Oh yeah, they still do have Petrovic. I don't know where he is at the moment. I don't know where he is right now.
I don't think he's on loan.
I think he might still be at the club.
He is at.
No, he's at Strasbourg.
Yeah, League One.
Of course he's at Strasbourg. Of course he's at Strasbourg.
Okay.
Surprise. Next.
Well, when you look at those options, then yeah, I think potentially we could be looking at a goalkeeper signing. I don't think Maresca will persist with Robert Sanchez. I did want to say I feel like with this Chelsea team, I kind of picture this is the first time since his departure that maybe Roman Abramovich might smile watching them. I feel like Maresca feels like maybe the first coach since Abramovich's departure that maybe Abramovich would have hired this guy too. So I feel like they're doing it right, this whole this project, and who knows, maybe a Liverpool Chelsea title challenge could be crazy, but maybe.
No, that'd be absolutely insane. And again, and I'll use Caicedo as an example. You look at him in his first season under Pochettino, and you just look so out of place. It looked like he was struggling. He looked like he had to do basically everyone's job, and he was left on that island all by himself. But bringing a manager with a good structure, a good system, who implements balance across the pitch, can do wonders for a player. And you look at Caicedo, not only is he just a very good footballer on a technical level, he's flourishing in the system. And look at Lavia as well. Another player who's been largely very good for them this season. Next, looking at Crystal Palace, where it's not looking as great. They've won one game, thanks to Dr. Tottenham, handing them their first 3 points of the season. If you're on the board of Crystal Palace right now, if you're Steve Parish and you're looking at everything going on, how poorly they've started, how much patience would you have with Oliver Glasner?
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily a manager problem. I think if you look at their games, their biggest problem is scoring goals. Very clearly, it's scoring goals. Like even in the game where they scored 2 at Wolves, I think both goals were scored by center backs. So I think that losing Elise is big. They lost Zaha. I know that wasn't this season, but it was last season. But it's obviously still having a big impact. I think they have a really big problem with scoring goals, and they need to address that before they can look at the manager.
And unfortunately, I think they're finding out that spending how much, 30 million on Nketiah was not going to improve that department really. and making him a out and out starter.
Yeah,
That
and
was
Nketiah is a
never
strange
going in.
signing for me because for me, Nketiah at Arsenal was very much a player who benefited from the system. But when you go to Crystal Palace, you then have a much worse system. So I don't know. I don't know what they thought was going to happen with him.
I mean,
He was just
Glasner's
assuming he was
still a
gonna start
very
scoring
good
hat-tricks.
coach. I think Glasner's still a very
Yeah, I
good
think
coach.
Glasner's done a good job overall, but it's just
He's
nothing
had.
going
I
forward
think
this
he's had to
season.
change the system a bit because, like Amorim, Ruben Amorim, he played with the two inverted tens. He had Olise, he had Eze on those wide flanks, and he had Mateta just up front. Losing Olise, they brought in Sarr, who's a very different profile of footballer. So in a way, I think with the players that were brought in, I think Glasner was thinking maybe I change this up, make Eze as just the out and out number 10 and play a 2 up front, which hasn't worked. And they've looked better with Sarr, which it's still, inconsistencies. He's in the team, out the team. Yeah, it's not looking good for Palace right now. And
I mean,
and like you said, real quick, Jose, both their goals are scored by centre backs. One of them, Mark Guehi, my guy. Big up Mark Guehi every single time, my baller. And speaking of Mark Guehi, is it just a matter of time before he leaves? Is it just a matter of time now?
Yeah, it probably is, especially if they go down, which it looks like they're going to go down at this point. But if they go down, he definitely is going to go to a better side. Hopefully, it comes to us. I'd love to have him at United.
I'm such a big fan of it. You know what? I will refrain from talking about how highly I rate this player because we'll be here for another 45 minutes. So Everton, I'll go for it.
yeah, just real quick. I mean, and that's why the question you asked was, how patient can the board be with Glasner? And it's like, when you look at the instant impact that he had last season, and you look at how Palace has gone predating Glasner, it's like, if the football gods were deciding what's better for this club, you would say, how much patience does Glasner have with this board? The board is the issue at Palace. I mean, imagine the kind of job Glasner would do at Brighton with a solid infrastructure, a good board. Imagine how amazing that would be. So it's like, it's sad if this project doesn't work out, and I honestly don't think it will. But I would fault just the Palace board, and more so than Glasner.
Or not. Moving into Everton, and they somehow haven't lost a game. They have not lost a game. Sean Dyche's defensive masterclass, back at it again. Still got 38-year-old Ashley Young starting week in and week out, competing with Seamus Coleman at right back. And you got Michael Keane scoring goals that I would see from a top level striker. And so got Tarkowski at the back, doing well. But of course, the player that we're just going to talk about always, Jared Branthwaite. Is he going in the summer? It's just a name that will always stand out regardless. I'll throw this one out to the lot of you.
I'm gonna say yes this summer. I think he'll stay
He'll stay.
this summer. Yeah, I feel like it's just not. He's not gonna get his move, but he will eventually.
Fair enough. There really wasn't too much to look at. Everton, Dwight McNeil, I think did hit a bit of form.
I would say Pickford has been quite good.
Fair enough.
Actually,
Also-
and then
Yeah.
this is. I saw this stat that was pretty cool, where it was basically they showed a heat map of the pitch for each team, and they showed basically how much time that this team allows opponents with the ball. So the higher pressing teams, like I think even Bournemouth, had a really good heat map where pretty much near to all the pitch was red, meaning they're allowing the opposition very little time on the ball. Right. The by far worst team in the Premier League in terms of that metric was Everton. They were allowing the opposition a ton of space, which we know with Dyche, but that's one thing that was interesting. We can post it to the Instagram maybe.
Yeah, that's actually a very good idea. However, a team that has a great many things to talk about, and continuing on with Fulham, just Marco Silva still doing his thing, still doing fairly well. Only lost one game to Man City, which really, I watched that game. They actually could have gotten something from it. I Fulham were just unlucky in the end. Marco Silva's still doing very, 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 very well with the players that he's got. We've seen probably one of the most best or red hot striker winger duos. Throwback to 2020, as you mentioned last time, Jimenez and Traore are just seeing, like I think I said it, I mentioned it last episode, right? Seeing the Traore cross and the Jimenez header again, just PTSD from like 4 years ago. And recent weeks, Harry Wilson has been taking some headlines. Yes, Harry Wilson, probably a name you have probably not heard of for who knows for how long. That brace off the bench so late, and the first goal that he scored, I think. Did you not see that Harry Wilson's first goal that he scored?
I didn't.
Because that was just outrageous. That was absolutely incredible. That's a goal of the season candidate potentially already. Definitely go back and have a look at it, because that was outrageous. And never him to go on and win the game in the end, just unreal. Winning against Brentford, coming from behind. Who knows what the limit could be? I think. Do you think they could compete for a Conference League side or a spot? What do you guys think? Or too soon still?
No, yeah, absolutely they could. I think they've been in fantastic form for the entire season so far. So I think that they definitely have every right to think that they could compete for a Conference League spot at least, maybe even a Europa League spot.
Very fair. Next, moving into Ipswich, and honestly, one name firstly, Kieran McKenna needs to be talked about. For Joe and I would definitely know a thing or two about Kieran McKenna, and
Well, let's wait on that. They've won one game, so let's wait on that.
no, but it's not just one game though. Like even in the games that they lose, and you look at, since he's been at Ipswich, 2 consecutive promotions. You look at the brand of football that they're playing. It's fairly open, fairly. It's always on the front foot. But in the majority of the matches, their intention is to try and play on the front foot. Of course, they're not going to play front foot, gung ho attacking football against the likes of, I don't know, Liverpool, Man City. Of course not. But the way that Kieran McKenna has this side playing football is definitely admirable. And Liam Delap and Leif Davis, the left back, I don't know how he hasn't gotten a call up for England yet. Very, very, very good player. Technically very good. He scored a worldy of a goal, I don't know, a few weeks ago. It might have been against Villa. But what do you lot think of Ipswich so far, just looking at this run of games? Do you have any other takeaways?
Well, I mean, I will say I expected them to be probably dead last at this point, and they're above the relegation zone. So, but doing certainly better than I thought. And I definitely will give credit to Kieran McKenna. I definitely rate him, and I rate the way Ipswich play. I do think it's kind of stupid because they lose because they're going to lose most of the time especially against the big teams. But I do rate it, and I rate the manager. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
Next, moving into Leicester, which, if we're comparing and taking a look at, if someone were to ask me, who would I feel more optimistic about, saying either whether it's just staying up by the end of the season, who I think just has a brighter future ahead, I would go with Ipswich. Looking at their manager, yes, they may not have all the names and all that, but you look at the way that these players are playing in this system as a cohesive unit, and more times than none, they're doing their jobs. We're going to say pre this season, right? But when you look at this Leicester team, you look at that summer window that they had, not the best, not the greatest. Andre, I don't know how you lot I think you made a combined fee of what, maybe like 40 to 50 million pounds on Winks and Oliver Skip. I don't know how on earth that I've managed to do that, but that's incredible. But is the football that Leicester are playing right now, is this sustainable to keep them alive for another season? Because I think they're, from the last time I checked the league table, I think they're 14th, 15th. Again, I could be wrong. I could very well be wrong. So, someone were to check that for
They're in
me.
15th.
Okay. But they're a lot higher up in the table than I actually thought. Do you think that the football that they're playing is sustainable enough to just keep them alive for another season?
I mean, it looks like it is. I don't think. I said before, I don't think that relying on Jordan Ayew and Jamie Vardy is going to keep you up, but maybe it could. I mean, I could be wrong. They're fairly comfortably above the relegation zone at the moment, 3 points ahead, so they don't have too much to worry about yet.
I'd throw Odson
Yeah.
Edward in that category as well.
I mean,
Um,
Man United
and-
only have 5 more points than they do right now, so there's that.
Okay, yeah. From how we've been playing this season, vast majority of the teams are doing better. So, and
Yeah, I mean,
one player
it's
that I do want to point out in particular, Facundo Buonanotte, on loan from Brighton, and this young kid, he's basically been trying to grab games by the scruff of the neck for Leicester. And sure, he may not score goals every week. He may not snap how to get G and A, but when I look at the overall performance, almost, I'd probably say 7 to 8 times out of 10, he's always trying to do the right thing, trying to make the right pass, the right decision, moving into the right space. He's always trying to do the right things, and he's showing that he's doing the right things as well. And I think someone who, or from a neutral perspective, I think someone who will look at this player and will say, oh, if he doesn't score, if it isn't good enough. I think what he's been doing, just from a neutral standpoint, has gone a bit under the radar. And I think if he continues this form, assumingly that he does, I think, other Premier League clubs will be taking a look at that. And another player Brighton can sell for a bunch of money if they so choose. Next, the main topic, Liverpool. Liverpool, Arne Slot. Old Dutch manager that the league has ever seen. Has Liverpool top of the league with, to which he doesn't really rate or fancy anyways, the top of the league. Does this change your predictions at all for who you lot think are going to win the league this season?
I mean, yeah, I think so. But I think that if there's any season that Man City have looked vulnerable, it's this season. They have a lot of injuries to their very important players who are going to be out for basically the rest of the season. So, especially Rodri, and Liverpool look way better than last season. So I think that Liverpool have a real shot and are definitely the team that are in by far the best position to win the league at this point.
And one thing that definitely needs to be gotten across, Mo Salah, just different level of scary, of frightening, just that he strikes into every single team that they play. Because I think this version of Mo Salah is probably, maybe arguably, better than any version of Mo Salah that I've seen in the past. Because this is someone who is also going to try and has been creating a lot more for his teammates and fellow attackers as well. He's been providing a lot more and has been very good at that, on top of his goal-scoring instincts, which all of us know that he's got and has shown this season. I mean, for defenses, for Premier League defenses, especially for Man United's defense, because we are his favorite side to play against, prayers out to. And lastly, before we move to Man City, I wanted to get your thoughts on the David Coote situation, because that has just been an absolute madness. So I'll throw this one at you first. what do you think about the whole David Coote situation with PGMOL and this whole referee shambles?
Oh, yeah. That's pretty interesting. It's kind of interesting because I don't know exactly who leaked it or what, but there's been like multiple videos now. So it's clearly someone has something against him, but I don't think he's gonna ever be reffing at the Premier League again. Not because like he's corrupt, but just because of the things he's done. Like I remember, like I looked at this thing. It's like he reserved a room before a match started just to like do a bunch of drugs, which is kind of crazy. Yeah,
That's,
and he
that's
obviously
mad.
hates Liverpool, so and he hates Klopp, but yeah, that's kind of crazy.
That, and I think from seeing this incident, I think now any sort of small benefit of the doubt that referees may have been given it in the past, they're not getting that benefit of the doubt anymore. They're not. And this incident just, thrusts the referees into the spotlight and into, an abundance of criticism, which, many decisions rightfully deserved, VAR as well. So they're going to be in the spotlight a lot more.
I mean, look, if David Coote, who I didn't even know this guy's name before any of this happened.
Yeah.
If he's doing drugs, like I can't wait to see what Anthony Taylor's doing before games.
Anthony Taylor, Chelsea fans, if they see this man referee their matches, they're going to have a riot. They're going to have a riot. Andre, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just like, when you sort of expect a certain level of, I guess, just responsibility and maturity from a ref, someone's going to remain cool-headed amongst literally these athletes who are raging and just, 60,000 people plus in the stadiums. It's like you want a cool head. You want someone responsible. And I don't understand how careless you have to be to say that stuff on video. Like, yeah, I guess with your buddies, David, say whatever you want, but someone pulled a phone in front of your face, you're going to say that stuff with all the scrutiny that referees are under? It's just stupid. Like, how am I supposed to... Yeah, I don't get... I mean, I know he's a fourth official, right? It's not like he's that important, but still.
No,
like,
and you're absolutely
ridiculous.
spot on. I mean, that was a very, very careless decision. And look,
Careless.
at the end of the day, right, referees are human. They're human at the end of the day. They're going to have their biases naturally, because everybody does, because we're all normal human beings at the end of the day, right? But like all three of you have said, and I'm going to echo what all three of you have said here and now. You need to have a certain level of integrity, of professionalism, and also just situational awareness. Like, especially this season, referees have been under an intense magnifying glass, and you've gone and done that. Yeah, the referees are not getting any excuses.
I mean, not to mention that, but I mean, did you guys see it was a photo recently where they were showing the VAR room during a game, and one of them had FPL open.
Oh
Did
yeah.
you guys see that?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw
I mean, what's up with that?
That was-
It's like the David Coote thing overshadowed that. Like, what's up with that?
Absolutely wild.
I mean, the players can't have FPL, but you're telling me that the referees can? That's crazy.
That's not. Moving into Manchester City, and for the first time, Pep Guardiola 4 straight losses in all competitions. One of them to Sporting Lisbon. Big up Sporting Lisbon for that. What on earth is wrong? And yes, missing Rodri, missing arguably your most important player, or as deemed by the Ballon d'Or, the best player in the world, is always going to make your team substantially worse. And we've seen it in the past. City without Rodri struggles. However, even with some of the other injuries out as well, just specifically watching this Man City side, they're making mistakes that some of these players are making mistakes that I wouldn't even imagine. Some of these players are putting in performances that I wouldn't even think that would be consistently occurring. Matthias Nunes, someone who had a very difficult season last year, is a shining light right now. He's been playing very well. Alexa Phil Foden, worrying form. Kyle Walker's just continuing to decline. You look at that Brighton match, Mitoma absolutely cooked this guy. absolutely rip this guy to shreds. Is it just injuries and losing Rodri, or are there other things on the pitch that are also going wrong as well? Or is it a mixture of both?
I think it's
I
probably a
think-
mix of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just think mentally they're not there. They're not going in to kill games anymore. I feel like they're going in with this confidence, like just that their football and having Pep is eventually going to get them over the line, because it seemed to just games always just seem to end up in their favor once they put on the pressure. But they're not killing the game. They're not ruthless Manchester City right now, and by any means.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I think that it's probably a mixture of a bit of burnout from obviously winning
Yeah.
4 Premier Leagues in a row, to also how important it is that Rodri is gone. Because Rodri, for me, is like everyone talks about Man City's system. Like Rodri is the system of Man City. So when Rodri's gone, every single player on the team has to work way harder to make up for what you lose when you lose Rodri. So I think that it's a mixture of burnout and the players just not working hard enough.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't agree more. And you look at some of the individual players, on the team right now, and even the transfer window, as savvy as it was, Savinho's an absolute baller. Very, very good signing. On a technical level,
So 0
Just from-
goals, by the way.
but it's not just about G&A though. That's the thing.
No, of course. Just
It's
because
not
he has,
just
he,
about
has, he
Gino.
has 0 though. Like he has none.
Yes,
He hasn't scored
it's
any.
part of it.
I appreciated that mention, Joe. I like hearing that.
G&A is part of it, but also when I just look at his attributes as a footballer on a technical level, he's one of the better wingers in the league. And I said better, not best, before any of you lot absolutely cooked me.
Yeah.
He's one of the better players in the league. And when you look at Man City's options, he's a way better he's light years better than Doku. Light years better than Doku. And for the performances I've seen, he's been performing well. But
You know
but
who
of
has
course, he doesn't-
more goals than Savinho this season?
who?
Anthony.
Okay,
Oh no, sorry. I just wanted to bring that up. Keep going.
okay,
So does Gabriel. Gabriel has like 3 times more goals.
okay. I mean, Gabriel's better than Savinho. You're comparing a centre back to winger. Don't see how that's incredibly relevant. But I don't know. Do you think City will turn this around? Knowing Man City, they will. Knowing Man City, and how many times
Yeah,
I've
I
seen
think
this.
they'll- I
but-
think they'll turn it
The
around.
thing
But
is, Dave, I feel like goals and assists does matter.
No, it does. It definitely does. But I'm saying that's not all that should matter when I'm
Also,
looking at a
is
football.
Is he out for a while, or did I read that wrong?
No, he played against
Who is Savinho? Didn't he just play for Brazil
yeah,
yesterday?
Did he? Okay.
I think he did.
For some
and
reason,
he
I
did
thought he
play
got surgered
from
off.
Brighton as well. I do think it once City gets some of their main players fully back to fitness, the look improved. However, this is the worst I've seen Man City probably in a long time.
Probably
Even
since
in-
the COVID. Probably since the COVID season.
Yeah, probably since the start of that COVID season when they were defensively shot, probably since then.
I mean, I feel like they always have that little patch during the season where their results aren't coming off, and then they just turn into superhuman come the end of the season. But that rough patch has come a lot earlier this season, so that's what feels a little bit concerning. But I mean, think back to that Arsenal Man City title run. I mean, they were how many points behind Arsenal? So it's hard to say. But I do feel like Joe is right. It might be a little difficult to motivate them after 4 years of winning the Prem. I think it might be just a small symptom of burnout, and I think once that motivation does come, I think it might come for the Champions League over Prem. I feel like I'm just having a feeling that maybe I think we're gonna have a new winner this season.
There could very well be a new winner of the Champions League this season.
Oh, sorry, no, I meant new winner of the Prem. Yeah.
Uh,
I think it
could
won't
be
a-
either,
a
actually.
repeat.
Could be either.
Either.
Now, to the other side of Manchester, where things are finally looking to be just a little bit hopeful. Manchester
Really?
United. After the
You think
first 4
so?
games, Eric Ten Hag sacked. And I told Matt at the beginning of the season, I predicted, and I'm calling the Dave I Masterclass here and now.
Oh, you're
Right
calling
here.
the Dave I Masterclass.
1 hour, 5 minutes, and 18 seconds. I said it at the beginning of the season. I predicted Ten Hag would be the first one sacked. And my reasoning was, I feel like Ineos are going to just, are literally going to just let him die in his own sword. They're literally going to let him sack himself. And at the end of the day, came a lot later than I thought, but that's ultimately what happened. So yeah, I thought I'd just I mentioned that.
Okay.
Rude took over the next 2 games. When it was 4 games in total, I believe. Wait, no, what am I saying? No, he had the Chelsea game and the Leicester game. But now he's gone. Ruben Amorim, the new manager of Manchester United. Joe, what are your thoughts on everything? Ten Hag gone, Rude's interim, and
Yeah, well,
Amorim
first,
taken.
Dave, I just want to congratulate you on your masterclass. It was a true masterclass, and in 2 years when we sack Amarim, I'll congratulate myself on my Jose masterclass. Yeah, what do you think?
Hey, fair enough. Fair enough.
No, so I think Amarim is really exciting. He looks a fantastic coach. Reminds me of a lot of Mourinho, and obviously Mourinho is one of my favorites, so I'm happy about that. But on a real note, I think we're gonna probably sack him in 2 or 3 years, so that's not gonna matter anyway.
The one thing that I will say, this is Ineos' guy. This is the brand new structure, and I think,
Of course, Davis. It's just Ineos' guy.
and you saw they backed Ten Hag in the summer, and I could only assume that they
Yeah.
are going to back Amorim as well.
Of course, they'll back him for 2 seasons, and then he'll be gone. And you'll be the first to say Amarim out.
But one thing that I will say, I think because they've chosen him, because we were hearing Tuchel, we were hearing Potter,
Mhm.
you know, the board want to play a very specific style of football. They want to play front foot football. And I believe that they have selected Amorim because they believe they see him as the guy to do that. And if he ends up being able to do that, then fair enough. If not, then he goes. But we'll see what he can do. I'm excited to see him get started. And this is a different kind of manager. 39 years old. Young manager. We haven't had a manager like this.
No, we haven't. We've only had Ollie, Van Gaal, Ten Hag, Solskjaer. None of them have worked, but this one's gonna work though.
No, I'm not saying that they haven't worked. I'm saying we haven't had a manager that has this sort of profile, a young manager, and it's a manager that a lot of teams in Europe were after. West Ham wanted him. He was Liverpool's first choice. Barcelona were interested in him when the news that Xavi was eventually going to go before they got.
The funny thing is, in
Hands split.
season 6, episode 3, you're gonna be saying him out.
Well, if he does the same sort of things that Ten Hag does, then yes, yeah, I will be, and I think almost anyone would.
All right.
But
Except for me.
Sorry.
Except for me. I wouldn't.
Wait, I came midway, and I heard Joe, you saying it doesn't matter, he'll be gone in 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Joe, who do you think? Were you more excited? One, were you more excited for the Eric Ten Hag appointment when that happened? And 2, who do you think is a better manager right now, from what you know, between Ten Hag and Amorim?
From what I know right now, I think that Ten Hag is a better manager because he's reached the Champions League semifinal. But I'm really excited for Amorim regardless. I was really excited for Ten Hag, and I'm really excited for Amorim. I wouldn't say I'm more excited for either because they're both like pretty. I mean, Ten Hag's older, but I'd still consider him a pretty young coach. He was young and exciting when he came in.
he's older than Pep.
I went to Manchester a lot during Ten Hag's first season, and the fans and him had a really, really good relationship, and it was a really good season to go watch. So that's why I had a really big attachment to Ten Hag. I'm still gonna have a really big attachment to Amorim. I'm never gonna say Amorim out because that's just not how Man United should be running. We should always be backing the manager, giving him as much time as we can. But I'm very excited. I'm very excited for Amorim. I hope he does really well.
No, I think those are all very good points that you mentioned. I think Ten Hag's older. I think he's older than Pep Guardiola. I think I could be wrong.
Isn't he just
Um,
isn't he like 53 or something?
I think so, but like even then, it's like you look at the up and coming managers now,
He's 54.
like the Marescas and the Artetas. I'm not saying go and get a novice that has no experience, nothing. That's not what I'm saying, but you know, there's a new brand of up and coming managers now, and I believe that we need to also sort of lean in that direction. At some point, when Pep leaves, Man City will probably lean in that direction as well. Their sporting director of football is going there at the end of the season, so it'll be interesting to see, especially if Pep ends up leaving. Will be definitely very, very interesting to see what direction they go in. As for backing managers, I'm all for backing managers, 100%. But the one thing I will say is that if the manager's clearly something wrong, and they're clearly getting things wrong tactically, they're not getting along with their dressing room or all that, blindly backing a manager when they're not showing why they deserve that backing, something I will not do. I will back this manager until I see with my own pair of eyes that there's something clearly wrong and he shouldn't be backed. Prioritizing Mason Mount instead of Harry Kane in his we'll say second summer, right? Prioritizing Mount over Harry Kane is something that made me just open my eyes straight away and said this is a bit off. But we'll see what happens with Amorim. The system will be different. The two inverted 10s. I'm hearing a lot of Rashford 9 experiments. Ugarte, I think that's.
Well, he said he doesn't want to. He said he will not play the same football at Man United that he played at Sporting. So whether that means keeping the 3 back or changing to a 4 back, I don't know yet. We'll find out.
I think what he meant by that was that he probably looked at Man United right now, and looking at us right now, can we play the football that Sporting does? We absolutely cannot play the football that Sporting does. So just from my interpretation and what I got from it, I believe that's what he meant. However, if he really does believe that we can't play a style of football that, he's being brought in to have us play, then yeah, definitely going to be problems. But moving away from Man United,
Let me ask.
Go for it.
I'd say just my two or I would get 3 things maybe. I'll get to the third. But the 2 is like just to add some optimism. Is I poured cold water on Erik Ten Hag immediately to you, Davis, when you guys made the appointment. I feel like
all hands up. Honestly, I was just as excited as a lot of the fan base.
No, I know, but because I remember when Ten Hag was linked to Tottenham, and I was just like I wasn't feeling it, and then I do think Amorim
didn't want him.
Yeah, I'm more. Yeah, and I know we've looked at Amorim too when before Ange, and yeah, I do think I have a little more optimism for Amorim. I like him more, and then also just things have turned out well for Man United when they've taken from Sporting, right? You look at their history, so that also just that little piece of history and gives me a good feeling about it. And the third thing is, what do you guys think of the whole thing with that English reporter, like insisting that Amorim's speaking English? That was so annoying.
Oh, that was so stupid.
So stupid.
I found it absolutely hilarious the way that Amorim dealt with it perfectly.
Perfect. In a way, he dealt with it so well, and in a way that Ten Hag couldn't. That's when like it's just like that's why I was like, yeah, this guy's cool.
The way just communication's a very important thing, and you need to get your points across. And yeah, Ten Hag, I'm not gonna go too far into it. We all know his deficiencies in that department. One thing that I will say, I'm very happy, and I'm hoping Amorim will give the technical ballers a chance to actually play.
Yeah.
Free Ahmad Sreed, thank goodness, because I'm telling you, if that manager was still here, Ahmad would be gone, because he would just drop Ahmad at random times and would go back to the Garnacho, Rashford, Højlund front 3, which long-term wise, when you don't have a technical footballer in there, just didn't work. So, and Ahmed's been performing well, and he looks happier. I hope he signs that new deal, and he really wants to be here. So hopefully Ahmad stays. But if the manager decides he doesn't want to use Ahmad, then fair enough. But at least give him an opportunity. Anyways, moving to Newcastle. Looking at their run of 6 games, they're just so inconsistent in a way. I'm so inconsistent. Just looking at the trajectory. 2 draws, 2 losses, 1 win, 1 draw, 1 win. It just no consistent. And I always feel like, I don't know what it is. I always feel like Eddie Howe is like 1 game away from losing his job. I don't know why, but look at this Newcastle game. Just a few things to take away. Harvey Barnes has had some very, very clutch super sub moments. Very, very clutch. And a question to throw out: do you think there's an over reliance on Isak and Gordon? Because when those two aren't firing, it's problems. What do you think?
I think yes, but I also think it's temporary. I think they still have the tactics, they have the personnel to drift away from that. If those two, I think it's just going to come with some time. I mean, Guimaraes should look decent, I think, too, lately. But yeah, I think it's temporary. They're just, these players are on form. Maybe they're feeding them the ball a little too much, but it's by no means like a Brentford and Mbumo situation where it's like, oh, everything's really going through him. So they'll stabilize.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with Andre. I'd also say that they do have players that can cover. I'd say Almiron has shown time and time again that he can do it in the Premier League. Harvey Barnes is a decent enough player. I think they have enough cover if those 2 players go down that they can be all right.
Jacob Murphy somehow still exists, and at times he's contributing. So fair enough. Now moving to a side that for me, especially when I look at this run of games, they've probably been maybe bar Bournemouth and Liverpool, the team that's just impressed me the most. They have been on smoke. They have been flying. And yes, the results may not speak to it. But again, looking at the performances and the answer, they didn't pick up points. Again, at times it would either just be unlucky or just be down to them falling apart. The Newcastle game was a perfect example of that. Literally just two poor goals given away, and that cost them the game. But no one can overlook the job that Nuno is doing at Nottingham Forest right now. Looking at Sells in goal, that partnership with Murillo and Milenkovic, I mentioned it last time, but how could we forget Chris Wood? Premier League Player of the Month, Chris Wood. He's on a very hot streak right now. I mean, do you think he'll be able to keep this up?
Yeah, I do. I really rate Nottingham Forest this season. I think they've been fantastic, and I think that as long as they keep playing as well as they are, then I think he's going to keep it up totally. I think he could end up with 20 plus goals this season, to be honest.
20 plus?
20 plus, Davis.
For the culture, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it for the culture. Hopefully it happens. And if it does, Joe, you can mark whatever minute.
I'll mark down another Jose masterclass if that happens.
But I think, and I'm looking at Gibbs White. Gibbs White doesn't even look like his best self, and he'll get back to that. And when he does, they're just going to look an even more dangerous side. Hudson Odoi and Elanga doing very, very, very well in those wide areas as well.
Yeah, I think Spurs might need to look into bringing Nuno back at this point.
Moving into Southampton next. There wasn't a whole lot with Southampton, really. One thing I will say is that I think they were very unlucky in their loss to Wolves in the goals that they conceded. Otherwise, they would have been 2 straight games unbeaten. Maybe a bit of momentum going to the break, but yeah, it just seems dead and buried for Southampton right now. And Tyler Dibling is going to leave and move on. To a different football club eventually probably the end of the season. I don't know. I'm hearing Villa, hearing Chelsea. I'm hearing Newcastle. I don't know why Newcastle. Who knows? But yeah, as now moving into the team that may as well take back
Nuno,
Tottenham Hotspur. Andre, just what's wrong with your football club right now? I know the results looking purely at results, it'll look a bit different. But when you look at
wait. Before Andre speaks, this might be the most Spursy set of results that we've ever reviewed on this channel.
that's a very good point. Literally win loss.
No, but and then look at the teams that they're winning and the teams that they're losing to.
Yeah.
And Galatasaray.
Yeah.
Andre Mendes, what's wrong with your football club? And I know Sirius is loving it right now, but Andre, what's wrong with your football club, man?
Two things have really been on my mind when it comes to this Tottenham side. I think first I go just mentally. The mentality has been pretty weak. It's like clear that there's a lot of ability in this team. And they look forward to playing big matches like City. I mean, it felt like we won the game before the game was over. It was just like it really looked like it was only headed one direction. And then we're amassing this nice little win streak or undefeated streak, and we're at the top, pretty much the top of the Europa League. And then we're heading into this Galatasaray game. And literally, it's like you could almost feel that the players were just ready to not give it their all. It was like, we don't really need this result right now. We have plenty of matches to go. Like, we've got whatever.
Davinson Sanchez masterclass.
Davinson Sanchez masterclass. So it was just like, I'd say one of the worst performances of the season. And just mentally, it was just really like no killer's mentality. The same thing I critique City on. So it's mentally, it's really, really not great. And then I also think probably my biggest criticism of Ange right now is I feel like he's mismanaged some of the talent. I think Udogie looks burned out, in particular. Probably my second favorite player at the club.
The whole defense has to be fair. Even Van de Ven looked not great. And Romero looked not
That's
great
why
either.
he's not. I feel like he's just not managing the talent right. When we look at the players who have looked consistently good, one for me is Pape Sarr. Why? Because there hasn't been a constant reliance on him to play these full matches.
Why has Madison been dropped? He's been dropped a lot in recent weeks.
Madison has been dropped a lot, and I mean the reason is I think our best player. It's just Kulusevski. He is just another level this season, and he's just looked better in the 10. Right. So if we're dropping Madison to more of an 8 role, then it seems like we might have other players that might be able to do that better in certain games where we might need someone a little who's better at pressing, stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, you can't. It's so hard to rule out Kulu. He's so much of the team right now.
You can't play both of them though, because
you can't. We have. I think we've actually looked the best when it's. We've looked the best when it's been. Yeah, we looked the best when it's been.
And then both of them in front of them. That's like, dual 8s, dual 10s.
I think our best midfield this season has been the Bentancur, Madison, and Kulusevski. That's what's looked the strongest.
Injuries. I don't know why Andrew moved away from that, but yeah,
it's just I think it's just the needs game by game. Sometimes it is pretty attacking. Yeah, and then I mean I'd say the other positive is just obviously you guys saw how good Mikey Moore looked against in the Europa League, but also just Dom Solanke has just looked Solanke has looked great.
That is one.
Yeah. So
what's happened to Brennan Johnson, bro? Because I don't know what's happened with the goals he drawn up. He's still been performing decently well.
I've still been happy with him. I'm kind of sick of I guess the media on his back. I still think he's looked terrific. I get mad when he gets taken off.
Of Brennan Johnson is something that just reached my eyes. So I'm just like, I can't be bothered with that.
Yeah, but yeah, I'd say a highlight. Yeah, we can close out with just weak mentality, clear just mismanagement of some of the talent, just some burnout, and then amazing players have been Solanke, and then number one, Kulusevski. Beautiful.
A team that's been an absolute shambles this season, West Ham, and for me, an early prediction. I'll be shocked if Julian Lopetegui isn't the next manager to be gone, because you look at the talent he has at his disposal, and dare I say, the terrorism football that I see from this manager. You have some of on paper, you have a very, very good attack. One of the better attacks in the league.
Yeah.
You have Bowen, you have Paquetá, you have Kudus, you have Somerville, who's he's a very good footballer. I know Fulkrug's injured. You have Antonio, who's been there forever. In midfield, you still have the likes of Alvarez, still the likes of Socek.
And Sufal.
Yes, in defense, Sufal, of course, best in the world. Todibo, very good center back. Around 40 million to spend on Max Kilman, a guy that Lopetegui wanted. San Wan-Bissaka as well. Ariel Longo, who's been hit and miss, but still a decent Premier League goalkeeper, and Emerson, who's still a decent level left back. And the football and the performances have been awful, absolutely awful. I've seen a lot of Kudus thanks to Arsenal. Serious, how much would you pay for Kudus?
I'd say 40.
Players. Yeah, West Ham need to improve. And he's the next one out. He has to be the next manager. So that's my predictions. And last but not least, taking a look at Wolves. One thing I will say, Jurgen Larsson definitely looks good. Definitely looks good. He's actually finally scoring goals. Hopefully they give Gary O'Neill the time and the patience, because he has been hurt by Wolves' summer window, getting rid of Kilman and Neto, not replacing either of them. And I think Ait Nori is next on that list for next summer. So that is a bit peak. But there we have it. We come to the very end of the Premier League. And now for just a very, very brief roundup of just random things going on throughout Europe. Throughout Serie A, La Liga, Bundesliga, everywhere. Jose, what's the Madrid, man?
Yeah,
Can't
Jose,
hear
are
you.
you gonna answer? Like what?
Can't hear you.
David, sorry, repeat what you said. I couldn't hear you.
Or is it, I said, what's the updates? What's been going on at Real Madrid? Because it's
At Real Madrid?
been a bit of a mess, man. When you look at
Yeah, we just have a shit ton of injuries, and like especially to the important ones are in our defense right now, where we basically don't have a right back at the moment, because Carvajal's out for the season and Vasquez is out for I think 3 or 4 weeks. So we really don't have a right back. We're probably gonna play Fede Valverde at right back for the next few weeks, and then also we have injuries. Right, I think to Chouameni at the moment, and who else? Alaba's obviously still out. So we basically have and Militao. So now we're also missing a center back. I
You
think
should
so
you should sign Ramos.
Yeah, I would have liked
Yeah,
that.
oh yeah,
but
Fly's
apparently-
in the
but
future.
that would never happen. Florentino would never sign him again, because that would mean that would to Florentino that would mean like admitting a mistake. Admitting that releasing Ramos was a mistake, and Florentino would never do that. So apparently we're gonna sign a center back, but we're gonna sign a young center back in January probably.
I'm hearing a lot of Aymeric Laporte.
That probably won't happen either. He's too old. Yeah, I would like it though. I think I rate Laporte very highly. I would love for us to sign Laporte and Ramos, to be honest. But I don't think Florentino would ever do that.
I've heard that Trent's rejected multiple contract offers from Liverpool, and yeah,
Yeah, I could see Trent
Ramos
happening.
won't
I
happen.
could definitely see Trent happening. And apparently we've agreed. Apparently today we agreed terms personally with Alphonso Davis for next season. So
another 2 cheeky Florentino free deals as well.
yeah,
But on the other side of El Clasico, Barcelona. A lot of these Barca fans were crying about Xavi, club legend, blah blah blah. And I said, look, your mentality is going to be fixed up when this manager comes in.
Oh, you
I-
said that.
And looking at the way some of these players are playing, I mean, Rafinha is literally the way this guy is playing is unreal. Lewandowski looks like more like Lewandowski of 2020, obviously working under Hansi Flick then. Lamine Yamal looks improved. Pedri just looks improved. So many of these players, and even even in La Masia, which I thought initially was going to be hurt a bit by Hansi Flick being brought in, it's actually benefited and it's flourished more than anything. So that's been really, really surprising to me. Any other updates around that you have for the across international football and European football in general?
I mean, I saw you had Como on the list. I would want to talk about Nico Paz for a second. I think Nico
Baller.
Paz is a fantastic player.
I rate this,
Fantastic.
rate this
Yet
player.
another gem that Real Madrid let go maybe a little too early.
I mean, Florentino did re-sign Brahim Diaz, so
Yeah, I mean, we re-signed him. We re-signed Morata a few seasons ago. So, I don't know. Maybe he'll come back and dominate.
Wait,
But we really don't need midfielders right now, to be honest. We have that's the department we're the most full on. So,
Who's the player that you guys saying is really
Nico
good?
Paz.
Nico Paz, he is cold. It's unreal. He's
Is he a center back? What is he?
no, he's an attacking midfielder for Como, number 10.
Okay, I'll look him
Very,
up.
very good player. But anyways, those are just a couple very brief, small updates around the world of football. And there you have it. There has been season 5, episode 3. And we will see you in the